Jeff Clavier joining us, entrepreneur, founder, managing partner of the early stage soft tech VC firm, with us from Stanford, California. Next to me here in New York, Bob Rice, general managing partner at Tangent Capital Partners, also an angel investor, entrepreneur, Money Moves contributing editor. You both have a lot of titles, which is fun. Bob, I will start with you first because you're right here. We go with local talent. This idea that Facebook has created millionaires, right, and a few billionaires, what does that mean for talent going forward for them?
Well, one of the most interesting things that's gone little noticed here is that Facebook, over the last few days, amended their S1 several times. And one of the consequences that flowed from that is that they shortened the lockup period from a traditional 6 months, sometimes a year, to just 91 days. So a lot of people are going to be able to sell in 91 days. A lot of insiders are going to be able to sell. In fact, there's another $10 billion worth of stock or so.
This was a choice, we should point out.
Oh,
right?
sure. It's a very untraditional choice, frankly. This is much shorter lockup than is usual. So in 91 days, you're going to have a lot of people who can sell stock, and that has two consequences. One, there's going to be a lot of stock coming on the market. And two, there are going to be a lot of millionaires leaving the company. I think there will be. And that's going to be very interesting to see what happens, whether the company may be even in some senses seeding its own destruction here, because you're going to have well-capitalized, very smart people who know everything in the world about social networking re-entering the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I mean, they have an education as well. Jeff, we want to bring you in on this point. Do you think Facebook needs to start succession planning?
They're smart, so they know they wouldn't have shortened the lockup period if they didn't have a plan, I think, to deal with the fact that you will have a few people leaving. I don't think it's going to be an exodus of 1,000 millionaires suddenly leaving Facebook. At the end of the day, if you look at the typical engineer in Silicon Valley, what they want is to really have something interesting, motivating, and work for a great company. And the fact that they have $1 million or $2 million in their bank account doesn't always sort of change that. So there will be some people who have been at Facebook for a while who will be leaving, but I don't think it's going to be like a mass exodus of a third of the people, since they have, I think, 1,000 millionaires.
Jeff, what happens next for Facebook? How is this company going to grow and make all the people that just bought this stock in the public market happy?
One word: mobile. That's the #1 challenge for them, to grow into other territories. The US is pretty much established for them. They have to grow into other places, and the applications, the features they can develop on their mobile apps is going to be a key driver of growth for them. So that's the one challenge.
So they have 900 million users, as we know. There's 7 billion people in the world. So there are places to go. But these privacy issues that we've been talking a lot about, Jeff, are important, of course, for the company, are going to be pretty serious barriers.
Yes, it's true, but at the end of the day, there is definitely a lot of room to grow for them. They will be one of the first services to have 1 billion registered users. The one characteristic of Facebook, which is kind of insane, is this notion of having 500 million people visiting the site, using the site every day. That's a massive sort of retention when you look at the key characteristics of an internet service. And so their ability to drive engagement further, to offer other types of services, dive deeper into mobile, because let's face it, I don't think that their mobile experience today is that great, is definitely a source of increased engagement and increased growth.
Increased growth. Bob, I know you're a little bit less sanguine, even though 900 million people, if they were one country, would be the third largest in the world. You still have some major concerns. This might be a great exit for the early investors. How is it going to treat the public?
Well, I'm not very optimistic about how it's going to treat the public at all. One reason, very concretely, we just mentioned, is there's a huge, all of a sudden, overhang in the very short time. But they've, of course, failed to demonstrate a profit engine that's really going to do well. I understand the strategic positioning they're in. I really do, and it's incredibly impressive. But still, we haven't seen where the monetization is going to come from, and the growth is happening in jurisdictions which have even less monetization than the monetization they're getting out of the United States currently.
Now, what about what Jeff just brought in, which was this point about mobile? Is this going to be the next spot of growth for Facebook?
Well, it better be, but I'm very concerned, as we've talked about before, about what mobile really does. I don't think that social networking is going to be stagnant. I think it will change over time. You know, one of the things you and I have talked about is this is reminds me a little bit of like the old days with AOL. Now, I know a lot of people throw up their hands when I say that, but the reality is that everybody in those days thought AOL was the internet. And everybody these days thinks Facebook is social networking, but we know times change.
Jeff, do you think Facebook is the next AOL?
No. I think that AOL was essentially a portal where you would hang out and read some things and go away. The thing that Facebook is more than a social network, to me, it's a platform that has allowed thousands and thousands of startups to access, untold number of users and to grow extremely quickly. There wouldn't be a Zynga, there wouldn't be an Instagram, there wouldn't be, name your favorite internet company that is a hot company today. They wouldn't be here without Facebook. And so if ever Facebook disappears, we go back to the dark ages of user acquisition where you have to actually pay marketing dollars to acquire those users. And so one of the reasons why Facebook will be sticky, obviously, there will always be new innovation. I mean, Pinterest 2 years ago wasn't there, right? And now they're worth $1.5 billion and they have God knows how many tens of millions of users. But the point is, Facebook as a strategic platform that each and every one of us builds their startup upon will therefore have a lasting value.
But of course, there are other ways that entrepreneurs can get new products to market. I mean, the Apple App Store has been phenomenally successful in this regard. Twitter is growing rapidly. My argument isn't that Facebook is going to disappear. My argument is that Facebook will become less relevant slowly over time because new forms of social networking will creep in. For example, geosocial social networking, where you form a group instantaneously because you happen to share actual interest in the real physical world with them. And I just think there are going to be a zillion challengers and things will change. That's the nature of the environment we're in.
Jeff, to Bob's point, what do you make of these changes in the tech ecosystem and the leaders being replaced or being challenged a lot sooner and sooner almost with every generation?
Yeah, it used to be every 10 years there's a new, sort of mammoth emerging, and now it's every 3 years, and that's great because guess what? That's what all of us early-stage investors are hoping for. But the point is, what you try to do as an entrepreneur is to figure out what are the best user acquisition channels and the best way to interact with the ecosystem. You don't try, or very few people try and rebuild their own, open graph, for example, their own graph. And so Facebook for that is the most efficient today. And the one thing which I've been always impressed with Mark Zuckerberg is his ability to really challenge itself and challenge the status quo internally, so they come up with really interesting, innovative product, and Timeline is sort of the last one. And if you look at how Timeline has really served a lot of companies to really just get themselves to tens of millions of users in just a few months, that's something which is extremely valuable for the ecosystem. So I'm not disagreeing that there will be new entrants. I'm counting on that, and I hope that some of them will be in my portfolio. But what I'm saying is that this is a really strategic property that a lot of ecosystems are built upon.
And speaking of the new entrants, one of the really interesting questions here is there are going to be new entrants for sure, and what you can reasonably expect. And one of the few ways I think Facebook can actually do well here in terms of public shareholders is by acquisitions. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that we've now given him, Zuckerberg, tremendous currency to go out and buy up that next generation of entrants. And so if they're very smart, I think the argument would be, wait a minute, they can continue to capture and dominate the market space. The issue then becomes, is Zuckerberg a good enough manager in the old school way of managing companies? Because most mergers fail because of management inability to integrate the companies well. So that's going to be the big challenge.
And we do know that he bought Instagram pretty much without consulting anybody. So there's also a question that he has too much leadership. Jeff?
So it's different. There's 2 points here. One is perceiving the potential threat or opportunity for Facebook and going after those companies. That's what happened with Instagram. And then it's having a management structure with Sheryl Sandberg and the entire management team being able to actually absorb those acquisitions. And we became shareholders in Facebook through the acquisitions of one of our companies about 9 months ago. And I think that for those guys, at least, it's been actually working really, really well. And so to me, you're absolutely right. They now have a currency they can use to acquire small, medium, and even large companies. They made the strategic decision to go after Instagram and spend, 1% of Facebook to get them, in the fold, which I think was very, very smart. And there have been rumors that they might be interested in Pinterest. Who knows? But based on their current, approach to market, they've been building most of the key features internally, but they've been really strategically acquiring talent and companies. So I have every reason to believe that they will continue doing so.
Jeff, we thank you. Jeff Clavier, founder and managing partner of Softtech VC. Bob Rice, thank you as well.